Hello, hello, hello. We're going to jump into a video today, and it's going to be similar to the last one where it's just like a recap mixed in with what I think, right? And then I'll have a weekly scan come out on Sunday. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of review everything, you guys kind of saw the early form depression hit me on Monday, Tuesday because I was right on TSM. Um, I should have known, right? My only thing was, and you guys knew this, right? Like on the weekly, we had this area here. It was technically from this wick, this weekly high, down into this weekly kind of high, low, mid-range here, this weekly low, right? And then we obviously had this big bar that broke through. We had a lower high, and this is where I was so confused on the market because this should have sold either broke through, right, for a new higher high, or it hits a lower high, sells off on low volume, catches a higher low, and then continues up. But some of the names just looked really bad, honestly, and some of the names were starting to fail and get pretty close to this mother candle, whatever this higher low was on the respective charts. Uh, but right, I mean, this kind of pulled down into that zone, right? And this is where I actually had my zone, if you guys remember. It was the progression gap in this daily sequence of bars between, the 25th, the 30th, yada yada. This looks exactly the same on QQQ, but I thought we'd pull down into that general range. But if you guys remember our position was pretty much built off of 68 or 168 and 165. So this little green zone here. And remember, we had this good day here where we're up like 25%, 20% respectively, and then we gap down to here at 167 or 168 technically. We barely fight over the top of it, and then we immediately sell down to 165. If you guys remember, I took ads at 165 again, thinking we'd have a similar reaction and just a hold of a zone. And what did we do? Right, we sold an extra $5 or 3%. It was overall from the gap down itself, so just kind of making its way all the way down to the low. That was nearly a 7% move on the underlying. That's going to kill your contracts, right? So I try to withstand that and hold it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this like a weekly candle close and kind of just watch this. We have till October. We had a nice crawl back up midway through that point. And what do? We then hit the top of 165. And if you guys remember, this had data come out as well. This was NFP, where we actually gapped slightly above 165. We were at like 166 or some change or something like that. But then we opened right around here at 165. We retested the bottom of the progression gap. We rejected it and we sold off again. So now in 1 week, we had, what was it? Jesus Christ. Yeah, like a 7% down day and then like a 5.68% down day. And you got to think, too, this is a short week. So this really hurt contracts. I didn't want to average down and do the irresponsible thing and keep buying into something just to be right, right? Obviously, I have to respect levels. I have to respect percentage drawdown. And I was down like 48 to 55%. It wasn't pretty. I was down literally 20 grand. I had a 40 grand position in this. I had like 80 contracts or 90 contracts or somewhere in that range. And I couldn't, I didn't want to sit there and stomach that. Like, what if we had a continuation bar underneath this, right? And if we rewind this, right, compared to the rest of this consolidation, these sell-off days are actually higher volume. So it did look like you could see a continuation or a gap down, and I thought we'd sell maybe down to this spot here at 154, technically 153.86. But you got to think too, right? You could get a higher low anywhere here. We could have gotten like this little, whatever this day was here, maybe a small bounce, but we could have gotten another low, right? We could have gotten the higher low somewhere around here. There's no telling it's going to be right here at 154, and we didn't see any buyers stepping in. So ultimately, I ended up closing my contracts here at 156.84. I didn't want to see it come down to 153. Once again, that's like another $3, right? That would have been even more. I probably would have been down 70%, and at that point, I'm a back holder, right? I'm putting myself in a bad position with that position. I'm putting other people, if they're following me, and it's overall not the responsible thing to do. And I closed. Worst thing I could have done, right? I mean, dude, literally on Monday, we end up kind of gapping up midway through this bearish bar on Friday. We kind of held here, and then Tuesday, what did we do? We ended up opening and selling down, basically off of this 156 spot again, but closed in a very, very nice hammer. So kind of indicative that we weren't going to make a low, and this was once again another mother bar, right? Or your kind of like higher low range, if you will. And then from there, what do? We open right here at like 150 or 163. We basically dipped down into the close or the opening print from Tuesday, and then we rallied super strong through this. And this is where I was really amazed. We moved through this 165 to 168 zone like butter. If we go to like the 15-minute time frame, guys, virtually nothing, like it just kind of completely melted through it. Obviously it sold off here and it had that V-shaped recovery, but it gave a 30-minute bull flag, right? 2-bar pullback and then go. It just kind of went through this very, very easily, like I said, like butter. There was virtually no sellers there. So you have to think, man, like this zone probably was completely absorbed and it was all buying, right? And it really was all buying. We saw this level act like support for so many days. The way it moved through this was unparalleled. And it was so upsetting because on this move here, just from Wednesday, it recovered pretty much all the gains. I think my average was like 2.7 on the high here from Wednesday this week. These contracts were right around there. I think they were like 3.10, 3.20. So it was super disheartening. I don't know. Like, I think this is the most painful loss I've had of the year, because I did say, and I've been saying it, like semis are not only going to lead the way, they're going to outperform. They're going to do extremely well. I've been seeing crazy buying in the tape. I kind of saw the structure aligning with a lot of different names, but I feel like this keeps happening to me once again, right? I either added too early or I should have just honestly closed my eyes, right, and just kind of waited till FOMC. I had a month on those contracts. Maybe I should have risked a little bit longer, or maybe I should have just stuck true to this spot here, right, rather than trading the percent. And I don't know, I'm kind of been fighting myself for the past like couple days now as to what I should have done. But I mean, this was an unprecedented move here on Wednesday, right? That's the CPI day. QQQ or SPY, I mean, you guys take a look, same exact day, right? I mean, this thing literally opened, sold all the way back down to nearly the bottom of that Friday close and then rallied straight back up. So I mean, like, dude, I can't even explain how crazy that is. That moved, what is that, $18, 4% in one day? If you guys don't know, like 2% on a day is unheard of. Like, that's just insane. That's a crazy, crazy day. And the fact that it sold down and basically did the same move twice, right? So this little portion here, it basically recovered $8 twice. So I don't know, dude. Or it didn't recover, but it did $8 twice, right? It sold $8 and then recovered $8 and then went extra. So just insane. I mean, but that's how the market works, man. And when buyers and the trend is one direction, and there's big money that's obviously looking to go long, it can move that direction very quickly once they've had their fill and once everything kind of aligns. So that Wednesday day really hurt my heart. Thursday, right? Not as crazy, but it obviously kind of pulled down and retested 168. If you guys didn't know, I got my entry here on Wednesday for my new contracts. Obviously, not as cheap as they were. Back down in this lower range here. It is what it is, right? I mean, like, had we like gotten some fills down here on those old contracts were literally $100, guys, for those October 18th. Who knows? I could have gotten my average maybe down to like 2.3, 2.4, 2.2. They're currently trading at like 3.9 right now. So I mean that would have easily been like almost 100% gain there. But I mean, yeah. I don't know what else to say. Good close here on Thursday. Closed near the highs and obviously above the highs. Volume still didn't look crazy. Didn't have a bearish print, and then obviously we pushed up today into this 175 spot, which is kind of the area we need to break. That's why I have this little draw out here. Ideally, right? It's the same playbook as before. And if you guys need like little segments of this now, I'm going to kind of break down what I'm looking at for TSM to add into this trade again, because I still want to add into this. You got to think this area is going to be support again. It's going to be the same playbook, right? So either we get a really nice high tight flag off of this resistance at 175, right? And we kind of just pull back just a tiny bit, let our EMAs catch up. And remember, I don't really care too much about that, but they are a little bit further behind right now. So that's why I'm saving a lot of my ads for 168 to 165 still, right? I'm just keeping it very simple. I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself. I'm not trying to like put a huge amount of position on right at resistance here. I want to get that pullback, and I want to make sure buyers can hold it. Same way they were holding back here before it failed. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking at, but I do expect maybe a high tight flag here if it does happen, where we have a very, very gradual pullback. selling's mitigated, and then we have a pop through 175. We take out that absorbed resistance, and then we pull back, base that now as support. And there's another opportunity right around here, right, where I might add into that position. And obviously, RR gets a little skewed, but that's still a pretty good move here. I'd be looking for about $11 or 6% on the underlying. And I would tighten up my expiration, meaning I would probably grab something for late September, maybe early October rather than the October 18th, which is that midpoint. So yeah, TSM still a forefront of everything. If we get a pretty nasty rejection, I mean, it just kind of comes to something like this, right, where you get this kind of move, and then maybe like a flag there, and then it breaks and bases. Same exact system though. I'm not going to overthink it too much, but the chart here on the weekly, guys, just looks like a higher low. Obviously, volume is now increasing. This was a decreased weekly candle that we now know of. Following week, which was this week, pushed through that what was supposed to be resistance very nicely. We're increasing on volume, so if we can just get some kind of pullback here on decreased volume, I'd expect a continuation upside, right? Or if we even gap above 175, I think we could just have another bar follow this with higher volume for the continuation and breakout to 186. Okay, that's that. Nike, right? I mean, we'll kind of review Nike. Chart on the weekly looks pretty damn good. It closed above the top of the gap there at 79, which is beautiful. And I'm really just kind of trading this on the weekly. It's nothing super crazy. But yeah, we had harmonic breakout on the weekly, divergent pullback to not only fill the daily gap here at 79, but I gave it to this spot here, right? So if we kind of go down to our daily time frame, this is the actual fill, right? This is the open from the close here. So this is the true fill on the daily. I'm sorry, yeah, technically on the gap down from the daily chart. It does kind of look like it's bear flag. I know a couple people pointed that out, but I'm just trading on the weekly, right? Until the weekly invalidates, I'll close this, but I'm really just kind of expecting it to kind of move here, maybe a push up, hold, and then obviously I'm looking for that 85. I do think it can go higher, but I'm not going to trade a bear flag like this with earnings coming up October 1st, right? I'd rather just kind of play it off the weekly, give it some time. Kind of, we'll call it the TSM kind of playbook, right? I'm going to give it time. You have to let things play out via time and not always just freak out over intraday price action. And that's why it's so important not to go so heavy so quickly, which was another mistake with TSM. I had 80 contracts and I may have been tied to it emotionally. Because 40 grand is not chump change, right? Especially to be swinging overnight. So I'm just going to give this a weekly candle close, or just kind of pay attention weekly and daily. Just kind of watch it as is. I'm not going to overreact to this one too much. But that weekly chart here, really what I'm looking at, the chart looks pretty good, just in terms of volume, price, right? It looks great. EMA wise, it is, obviously still in a downtrend, but it has an opportunity here to get that flip. If we can pop, make a new high here, and then start to trade into the gap, I assume those will start to flip here. So Nike, pretty chart here. What else happened this week? Roku, we called it. This was a beautiful trade. One of the best looking weekly charts, guys, and this is like textbook, right? You guys need to take pictures of this because there's a lot of charts right now that are set up like this with this 3 lower low accumulation fashion, right, that I always talk about here. Within that swing low, right? This was an old swing low here, so this is very pretty. Right, obviously I had the pop up and then a pull back onto these lower highs here, which I had marked here, and I was also a really pretty kind of daily gap as well, which I'll show you guys in just a second here. Sorry, I have black lines. I can change this if you guys want. I'm saying that as if you guys will answer yes or no, but we'll just do this, right? So it's a little bit easier to see. I mean, this chart was too good to be true, man. Like, really. You guys can see the consolidation back here. This at one point was a big rejection point here, right? And this is what sold it down for new lows, but those new lows were soaked, right? Obviously lower lows occurring, but each one is incremental, and obviously buyers stepping in on them. Then you get the pop, right? The pullback. Once again, I don't use EMAs that often, but you get the EMA crossback. This is the pullback to enter. And what did I do, right? I mean, I took 5 contracts. 5 contracts, guys. They were only like $200 per. I freaking wish I would have taken like, I don't know, like September cons, like September 20th. Those went almost 1,000%. For the 75 calls, right? Or the 72 even. I think I took the 70s for November. Those went just about 220%. If I would have taken anything lesser, though, this thing would have been insane. But yeah, we were pretty much just looking at it here. If I rewind this really quickly, this is what it looked like. We essentially had the gap fill here. It wasn't perfect, but remember, not everything has to be perfect when we're trading. We just things have to be good enough, and you have to be willing to absorb that risk, right? And that's what I did. I took 5 cons. Obviously, the gap didn't fill, but there was no pressure here from sellers leading into a very, very very crucial CPI print. I know it's not as big as the ones that we've had before, but good news is good news again, right? We're getting so close to an election. It just felt like if we had a cool print, things are going to continue to go up. I talked too as well about second week of this month, flows would return. If you guys watch Chem, he did say the same exact thing, but just keep that in mind, right? Second week of each month, typically you'll get flows that come in and support the current trend, or if you're seeing some kind of downside movement, you'll see it support the downside. We just haven't had that recently. And then going into that expiration, you'll have that window of weakness that we talk about as well, where volatile events can obviously change trend, or they can start to pull that thing back a little bit prior to its continuation higher. Now with this, right, CPI is kicking in, we had flows kicking in, chart looks pretty good, selling was mitigated, right? We had a hammer off of what? The top of the progression gap here at 64.39. I took that trade. I was willing to size in here at 63 if CPI was bad. And that's why I really took the November contracts. But look at this. Look at this. The volume divergence here was crazy. Completely crazy. Sellers had zero control. If it had a good move here, this thing was going to go. And that's exactly what we got, right? I didn't even have this. You don't have to have this flag drawn, but it did open here at 68. It pulled back, touched the imaginary line, which this doesn't have anything to do with where it bounced, in my opinion. But pull back, right, and then continued up again, had a really strong close. I closed, obviously we opened here, we pulled back, and then I closed the majority as we were kind of making our way up into 70. Those contracts were in the money. And then I held one, right? Second day gap up continuation. This is bound to happen. And take a look at the volume here. Beautiful, beautiful chart. Now you could argue this is either a spinning top, you can call this a hangman, but high volume here at the top here. I assume we get some kind of pullback once again, but that pullback could be very, very small. I'm still looking to long this, but I expect it maybe come here, maybe fill this downside gap, similar to what we did here, right? This chart's going to continue. I know it's going to continue, but you could get something like this. And then you got to think we have a whole new gap to claim back up here, right? This is why I've talked about Roku so much, because this could be a multi-month play, and it's very important to keep it on your radar. This trade is not done, all right? So I just want everybody to be aware of that. Target over, I don't even know. I'd probably give it to midway of next year, so like June. I'm probably looking at 94.50, 95. But yeah, chart looks super, super good. We just need to now turn this general area into support if we can, right? So between 72 to 68. 72 would be like top of the ads for lighter size, and then reserved ads for like 68, right? 68 would be the bottom end where I'd put a lot more size into this, since it'd be closer to risk. But yeah, that's Roku. Zoom is another one that I just started, if you guys didn't see that in the chat. Not the best close here, but this is the one I'm actually only have one contract in, so I don't care about this one as much. But very, very simple SR flip. We had this kind of pull down against the 3 lower low on the weekly accumulation. Same exact thing. Isn't that a little weird? Where we get this nasty pop on volume. We pull back on diverging volume. Almost the same exact playbook, guys. Kind of holding this lower high here. This is your break of structure on the weekly. So I just took a stab on it. I did say I would have more ads at 65, so that's really all I'm waiting for. EMAs are there as well to kind of support price, so you could have those buyers step in utilizing that. But I have the purple line here because I thought we'd get a nice continuation over this hammer candle here. It did not happen, so thus I will delete. But yeah, just looking for some kind of pop here. However you guys want to draw this, I don't think it really makes any sense to do anything like that. But really, just using the daily/weekly as my guiding hand here, with 65 being risk ideally. If we just get some kind of pop back to 72, right, that'd be a $6 move, or roughly 9% on the underlying. So there's that. What else happened this week? I can't even remember. Oh, I did take a Goldman Sachs short early on in the week, if you guys remember that. This essentially kind of broke down underneath this pivot point on the daily. I thought we'd move down to 437, but we did break down. I think it was on the 15, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, right here. I still have I guess the lower high bear flag drawn. But yeah, just a simple move here, right? We kind of ended up pushing back up. At the time, we were pushing right back into the 9. I just took a stab on it. I said, hey, if we end up kind of pushing up a little bit higher, I would look to add at 477, maybe even 480. But 477 was the spot. Just depending on the volume, I would add again, and then just kind of risk that that candle close there. But yeah, this is what I ended up taking. It did sell once we kind of got the breakdown. I ended up going short from that move, just about $8, right? Not too crazy, but you got to think that's a pretty big move. And it was a short week, right? So I got a nice little gain there. I think I made about 50%. So I wanted to take advantage of banks, right? I wanted to take advantage of banks. Banks did not look good. Of course, it was all over Twitter. Everyone was looking at it. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. JPM was probably the best one, in my opinion, that offered the biggest payout, but I felt like I missed that. Citigroup was another good one, right? But just didn't feel like I can catch it in a timely manner. So I went with Goldman Sachs. What else? Yeah, I mean, that's really it. And then kind of just like looking at, just like a rough look at some of these things, guys. MU looks pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie. The only issue here, the wrench in the kind of the play, is earnings is coming up end of September, so September 25th. I've seen this happen a lot, right, where you'll get some kind of bullish looking I guess, accumulation. I wouldn't even say this is an accumulation yet. I just think there's buyers stepping in at this gap. But I usually see where we'll have a gap just below, right? And then they'll give signs that it's a double bottom or they're buying off of the bottom of the gap. And you'll get some kind of move back up. And then earnings will send it and drop it and stop everybody out. And everybody doesn't want to buy. And then that's when you'll get the real move for a big move back up to the upside. That's kind of what I'm waiting on. Micron is 100% on the watch list. But I've seen this play out time and time again. I'm okay not being a bottom feeder here. And I know that sounds weird. You want to buy at the lows. I would just rather get the perfect low entry. I would rather grab this off 81.5 and then let this thing mark up. I would have essentially the bottom of the chart, or I let the stock prove itself, right? And let's say it ends up marking up from where it's currently at. I'd just simply be bullish back up here, right? This is that progression gap that was lost. Remember, we wanted this to sell off and catch support, but it didn't. Now, if it can catch support there again on some kind of markup from earnings or just makes its way up, I'll take this and then I'll target here, right? Very simple. 111, 110, you guys, whatever you want to call it. So two different scenarios here. I have a plan for both sides. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm watching. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. QQQ, guys. Still crazy chart. It's kind of doing what I said it would. I still have some kind of weird fear that the market's going to pull even lower. I don't know why. My deep fear, and I know you don't want to give into your fears, but it's also a probability game. My thing is, man, like, I'm just wondering if they priced in rate cuts and we don't get rate cuts, or it's not, it doesn't have to be like, oh, we're cutting rates and the market just flies. There could be some kind of sell-off factor because that's already been priced in, or it was overpriced for whatever, right? Maybe it's a lower pricing or a lower BPS than what we were expecting, and then it ends up moving down. I still just want to be a higher low buyer. I don't want to be a higher high, especially with like how this has been moving. I'd rather it reject up here around 480 to 474 and then give us that big entry on a new higher low, right? Or maybe it sweeps out this and then it recovers. Kind of does something like this, or let's redo this, right? Because I do have this drawn out. I'm kind of just watching this, but it's not my favorite. This is kind of like the better option, I think, is like maybe it sells off in this 474 to 480 zone. It does something like this, right? Let's say it kind of goes there. Just trying to draw this out. Can get an entry back in this zone because this technically hasn't been retested, right? Like structurally, where we can get a third higher low off of 460. Maybe it sells down, does this, right, off of like 460, maybe to 450 again. Or maybe it even goes deeper, guys, and we can get some kind of entry down here. That would be really nice. But I don't know. I don't want to be super bullish on QQQ on this just yet, especially with FOMC coming. I just have a weird feeling. But if the chart just goes crazy, it is what it is, right? I have underlying stocks that I can take. So remember, it's just about getting discounted entries, being as close to risk as you can be. And I just I feel bad, man. I probably shouldn't have changed my opinion. Those 2 days last week on TSM made me feel like I didn't know how to trade. If I'm being completely real, I took a 20K loss. I was like, fuck, bro. Like those were clear bear flags. Maybe I should like reconsider how I'm doing things. And it just kind of shook me up. But I mean, it sucks. But at the same time, I know I was right. So best thing I could do now is just like not chase certain names now that they're doing what I think they should do, because it is in supply and it is in resistance zones. So I got to be careful with what I do, and I can't just chase back those wins because that's how things get out of hand. But I will be watching QQQ. I would just like another pullback for a higher low leading into November or post November, right? It's just something to keep your eyes on. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. AMD is still of interest too. I think I kind of abandoned the idea that it's going to sell down below 121. Really, I've talked about this a lot, right? It did have this downtrend break, but it could still be a lower high here, right? This is still a big spot here. This was that distribution or redistribution low range. It popped, UTAD sold down, yada, yada, yada. We had a lower high off of this, and it really played out on the weekly with the weekly candle closes. But I'm still going to keep this one in kind of just like on watch, because if it can claim this here as I've drawn out, if it breaks above, pulls back bases, either the bottom and then the top for another higher low, I mean, there's a good trade here. Really good trade to go long on AMD. I think back up to like 175, 14% move on the underlying. So this is a chart to just kind of keep on watch. And probably one of my favorites if it can do that. This and MU I think pay the most now. TSM obviously would have been a great one, but it went obviously the main entry went lower than I thought. But AMD, MU, TSM all look so good. And to make things even sexier, right? I do have SOXL, right? SOXL. Remember I took my contract ads like right around in this area here. Obviously it sold down and it sucked, but my risk obviously was this 2350. I was a little worried it would break, but if we take a look, man, like at the monthly, and monthly is how I'm going to trade this too, guys, like to be honest. But if we take a look right on the monthly, it kind of just dug into the 618 here. Really nice hammer, some of the highest volume that we've seen since the low back here, right? Way, 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 way back here. Dude, it's insane volume. Take a look at that. Insane. But did catch the 618. Right, we had a secondary hammer here for them as well, where they tried to go lower, obviously with a lot of news coming out with whatchamacallit. We just had fucking, what happened in the beginning of September? We had news come out. It's blowing my, I can't remember what ended up happening. What was it? I can't, it's gonna make me freak out. But I also don't want to edit this video. Something happened beginning of September. I can't remember what it was, but it didn't make that new low, right? And I have to kind of clean up my charts, but it's kind of the same thing as what we saw with whatchamacallit, TSM, QQQ. It's all the same. I would just like to see it hit the top of this. If it can, maybe pull back into this progression gap and then make its way back up. We can essentially ignore this now, in my opinion, and the chart really just becomes this. We'll just make green line, and we'll do a little thing here. Argue it's even just that, right? But I'm kind of looking for either this or pull back into 33 to like 31, and then obviously I would like to see it go a little bit higher. And target short term still is 44. That's right around this lower high here. But yeah, just kind of keeping my eye on this. This is a really nice supply that I can just target 43 to like 40, 44, 46, or sorry, 44, 67. Really nice spot to kind of just watch how it reacts. Once again, if we obviously push up into that, kind of expecting high tight flag, same thing, right? And if it doesn't, I don't think I'll cut these. I would just kind of risk still 2350. But yeah, this is a clean chart here. This looks so good on the weekly, the monthly. So just kind of keep your eyes on this, guys. This is a big, big opportunity. Like I said, just for an equity position, I mean, we can get this back up to 64, right? Obviously, my ads were at the bottom of this zone here, right? So, I mean, if we can just get that pop up there, that's still like a 60, 70% win on underlying. And obviously, if I can try to trade some of these individual charts via options, I will do that. And I have exposure to those, but they have a nice equity position alongside that I can just hold throughout, regardless of time or any of the the Greeks that come with that put that underlying pressure on you to make decisions. I don't have that with SOXL. So I really like this chart. I think this has a ton of potential to just obviously keep going. So that's pretty much it, I think. Oh, I do have Rivian as well. Chart looks good, guys. This chart looks really good. I think a lot of options traders are getting stuck on this one. But pretty much just a weekly trade here, just waiting for this downtrend to break, and I really think it confirms over this spot here at 14.59, which was this previous support before it knifed, and then obviously we almost broke out, obviously pulled back, broke out here, pulled back, retested, and now price is getting super tight here. So Rivian is still a share play only for me right now. I will talk to you guys shortly about options next week. I think Tesla and Rivian are going to be big beneficiaries if we get rate cuts, and obviously I want to have a part in that. So especially with options, because we can get a very big move between this and Tesla. But I will save this for the scan on next week. Okay, so that's pretty much going to be everything. Once again, thank you guys as always, and I'm very happy. Right, I'm very excited for the next coming weeks. And I just tweeted this if you guys didn't see, right? I mean, I'll put it on the screen as well. I don't think I can, but it's okay to admit like you don't have a feel, right? I think a lot of us get like egos or we're very prideful. And after that loss on TSM in kind of mid-August, me not performing very well and me starting to see some drawdown, like I said, it's very easy to lose confidence. And it's okay to admit when you don't have a feel in the market rather than fighting that and always feeling like the man or feeling like you can do no wrong. I would rather just admit when I don't have a feel and kind of just sit out, right? Whether that's boring or I'm losing subs, and I've always told you guys I don't really care about that. But I'd rather just sit out and not jeopardize my money or what other people are looking at or influence your guys' decisions because of what I think is going to happen. I'd rather just sit out, take my loss like a man, and just sit there, right? And that's okay. And when the market conditions become favorable and I can trade setups that I know have statistical edges that I'm good at, I'll trade again, right? And I lost that for a little bit once TSM started to sell and really make those two crazy bars, right, from here and here. I felt like I just kind of lost touch with the market, if I'm being honest. But now that I know that I was right and things are starting to confirm again, I will start to pick back up. Things are now looking a lot better. So, and with that becomes obviously more confidence. I'll have higher trading volume and things like that. I'll be a little bit more active. So, yeah, just really excited. I'm just excited also to get FOMC out of the way. I feel like that's been lingering now for quite some time, especially with data coming more and more technically bearish, right? We've been getting bad data and hotter prints, and unemployment numbers haven't been good. It all leads to that rate cut decision, and obviously that rate cut will alleviate and provide some relief for the markets for a small time, and then obviously we kind of know what happens after that. But yeah, just want to get this out of the way. I want to get OPEX out of the way. We have expiration as well on Wednesday, which is going to be crazy, and then obviously we'll be able to kind of make decisions after that. But yeah, next week will be a big one, so I'm excited to trade it with you guys. I'm going to have a lot of cash on hand for the most part, but I do have some positions open as well. So we'll just kind of see where it brings us, whatever happens. So I will see you guys next week, and I'll have a scan for you guys on Sunday available.